Hey, good morning, everyone. It is WTF Talks with Dave and Hannah. Today, we've got Nick, the retail nomad with us, and we're going to learn a lot about him. Hannah, why don't you introduce what we're going to talk about today, and we'll get at it with Nick.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at you. You're in rare form today. It's just very funny and entertaining to witness. So today, like with any guest, we go through WTF, which is work hard, tell the truth, and finish the job. And we will be discussing some of the things that Nick has seen kind of through his career and how that has looked and played out in his experience. So Nick, before we hop into it, just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of what you do, what got you started in it, little general intro.
Absolutely. Well, first off, Hannah, Dave, thanks so much for having me on the show here today. I'm excited to converse with you all and then, exchange stories. So, little backstory for myself. I started out in the mid 90s when retail was booming. It was escalating at the fastest rate of growth in history. We had the opportunity to attach ourselves to major, brands in the US, domestic. And we rode those coattails of growth throughout the mid 90s, late 90s into the early 2000s. Took me out to the West Coast and really exploded retail. Lowe's Home Improvement, for example. I helped take them to the West Coast, saw explosion of major brands, booming hundreds of new store locations per year. Ultimately, I ended up selling out, left the continental United States in '05. And then just a few years back, about 4.5 years ago, I started a YouTube channel combining three elements: my passion for daily education, the interest of my retail career for 30 plus years, and international travel by creating the Retail Nomad. Kind of led me to where we are here today, and stoked to chat with you all and converse accordingly.
That's great. That's great. Nick, when we talked previously, we talked through the kind of WTF, our work hard, tell the truth, finish the job model. And one of the things that I just kind of wanted to jump in with you about is like, tell me about a time in your life and then maybe a time when during your travels or different projects you've been involved in where you've seen how work hard was just a lifestyle principle that served you well or served somebody that impressed you well in the course of your career.
Absolutely. And it's funny enough because just last night I arrived into Columbus, Ohio, and I'm heading out to my hometown here today. As soon as we finish this call and this chat, heading out to visit for some family. And I reference that because I say that I was very fortunate. I grew up in a somewhat rural area, and you learn the ethics, right? When you say yes, it doesn't mean maybe, doesn't mean 99%, it means 101% yes, right? And that work ethic that's instilled, and I say from the farmers, from the mechanical aptitude and things like that, I loved what I learned, what I was groomed with at such a young age. Fortunate, I started the company, ended up having a business partner, and we both had that same work ethic. We're going to get it done, right? And it's with retail, we can't build the store 99% of the way. If we don't build it 100%, 101%, we're not getting paid, right? So that literally has been instilled and ingrained in our learnings, our projects, our education of our teams, and so forth in the field. And I love what we've seen evolve within the industry and our word, the power of our word. So to me, I love the core element of what you guys talk about with WTF, and it really resonated nicely with me when we had our original combo there, Dave. So I
Sure.
like what you all are about.
That's cool. That's cool. And as the nomad that you are, where are you seeing a work ethic in the world today? You travel, you talk to a lot of people, you do a lot of podcast episodes. Where is that becoming important, or where are you seeing people that are outpacing the rest in the way that they approach their work?
Well, I mean, with today's generations, right? I think some of them, the expectation levels are different than my generation when I was young, and trying to help them understand that their word carries a lot of weight moving forward. And yeah, my godson and my nephew and things like this. It's a different generation, and times are different these days. And bringing back some of maybe those old school philosophies and
Sure.
ways to look at things, and being proud of themselves. when it's one of those elements when we say yes, we carry it through to where it becomes a yes, right? And we're very proud and confident, and it instills confidence moving forward, I feel, as well.
Yeah, for sure. I remember when I was in my 20s, I had some guys that had to teach me a thing or two about working hard. And yeah, I grew up in a rural environment too and had that instilled in me. But even as I was like graduating university and kind of getting my start, that's something that has to develop in you. Hannah,
Absolutely.
what's your take on Gen Z and the element of that?
Well,
Tired.
I think
Sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead, Hannah. I'm excited to hear.
I mean, I feel like I just beat this drum a lot, and so I hate to kind of repeat myself and say it again, but I think that every generation, like what you said, Dave, every generation, when you're in your 20s, you have lessons to learn about the concept of what it means to work hard and the process and nature of what that looks like in everyday life. And so I think that every generation, for as long as we have existed, there has been a group of people who have had to be humbled in that regard. And there's been a group of people who have already known what that looks like. And then I think on top of that, a lot of older generations see Gen Z doing different things on their phone. So, for example, Gen Z spends 42 hours a week on their phone right now. And a lot of that is perceived as play and perceived as nonsense. And that a lot of that, by their definition, could be work. And so, for example, when I was early in my 20s, I was really trying to do the TikTok thing. I was like, I really want to grow a following. And I did fine. I got some great notoriety from it and definitely took that and used it from what it was, but there was hours in days for a very long period of time where I was spending time recording videos. And Nick, you would be very familiar with this because of what you do on YouTube, but recording videos and content and then editing and then posting and then engaging and following other people and continuing to push that forward. And so, and that's a very small example. I mean, there's lots of people who want to be video gamers or streamers and are doing the same thing, or people who are diving into stocks, or people who, and like they're like it's both ends of the spectrum. And so there's a lot of generations who are looking at Gen Z who's consistently on their phone, and they're looking at them going, you have no work ethic. You don't do anything. And that Gen Z is going, you don't understand what I'm working on, and that's fine, because they don't necessarily feel like their older generations are giving them the time of day to try and understand what it is that they're doing. And so Gen Z is kind of like, I'm not going to give you the time of day to explain it if you're not asking any questions. And so there's a bit of a disconnect. So yes, there's absolutely validity in what you're saying. Yes, there are people of every generation who need to learn to work hard and work harder. And I think specifically and independently to this generation, we have a harder rep because of the alternatives that's going on with tech, which is really hard to see. But sorry,
Sure.
that's so long-winded. I can't explain that in 5 words.
Sure. But Nick, you've had a successful business and you were able to exit it, and you obviously developed leaders underneath you that were young and helped them kind of move through that process. How did that work for you practically, and what are some things that you've instilled in people?
It's a great question, Dave, because even today in some of my conversations and speeches, I say tech drives brick. And when I say that, technology is driving the change of brick and mortar. Right.
Mm,
So I like learning the tech. I don't do TikTok. I just started my Instagram page a week ago. Right. So I've held off. I've resisted it, and it's going to sound bad, and I say I couldn't find a way to monetize that, right? And I'm not driven by the money side of it. And then I've learned that that algorithm drives more maybe views to the brand, my name, the logo, and this type of thing. And then before you know it, they're on my LinkedIn page. The LinkedIn page will create $1 million POs. Again, I'm not driven by the monetization. I love technology when it creates and brings me freedom. And that's my
mhm,
goal, right? We all have different goals and wants and interests out there. I'll back up and give an example of where technology has really helped me and how that may relate to the Gen Zs of today.
mhm.
I left the continental US in '05, left California, cashed out, and I left with a backpack, right? and I moved
Nice.
to the jungles of Costa Rica. When I did that, I'm going to give a shout out to my boy Ian, right? He had just graduated, got his MBA, a much more educated individual than myself. He goes, Nick, have you heard of this thing called LinkedIn? I'm like, no, never heard of it. He goes, you need to get on it because you're leaving the United States. It's an easy way to stay connected. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he goes, well, it's kind of like Facebook, but you can make money at it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I connect A to B and maybe I make some money. I don't know how this works. Well, I learned it and I've used it now for 20 years. All I'm going to say is it's created hundreds of $1 million POs, right? And again, I'm not driven by the financial gain. I'm driven by the freedom that it creates and allows me to travel the world, live the lifestyle, and then, create the YouTube channel that I create today, which still keeps me connected to everybody via the technology. So
Right.
I'm not a techie guy. I'm more like Fred Flintstone. And I say, the Gen Zs are pulling me into the Jetsons, right? Type of scenario. Hannah's like, what's the Jetsons? So I love it. I love it when I can find ways to utilize it and maximize and achieve my goals faster, quicker, easier.
Sure. Sure. And that totally makes sense. It's a balance between old world values and using tech as much as you possibly can. I think one of the interesting things for me
Totally.
and that I just continue to struggle with is understanding how people are monetizing um, their Insta fame or whatever. And lots of people are doing it. And because I don't understand it, I don't necessarily value it the way I ought to and have never tried to do that. But it really is working for people. And so I just don't know anything about it.
I don't know that you should necessarily be trying to get Instagram famous, Dad.
Right? Well, it won't be for good things. It won't be for good things, I promise you.
But
It'll be
maybe
for
that's his
things
new tagline.
right?
Insta dad. Insta
I
dad.
Insta Dad.
I can't believe he said that by Dave.
There you
Oh
So
go. There you go.
goodness. But
Who knows?
speaking
been
of speaking of I can't believe he said that, Nick, I'm curious, you work with so many different kinds of people in so many different veins of what you do. When we move into the T for Tell the Truth, is there any specific conversation that specifically stands out to you that is like, ooh, this was a hard conversation, but helped escalate this person or this part of my career, or anything that's really like just stood out to you a lot? There's so many different kinds of conversations you have. I imagine it's so different.
Well, absolutely. And without calling out any names or brands, what I will
mm,
say, I've been in the industry long enough, going on 30 plus years here. And in our industry, we have a lot of yes, ma'ams, people that the sales side of things. Oh, yeah, it sounds great. Telling the truth. And a lot of times the brands don't want to hear that their project is not designed for success, right? I don't love, I have to say no more than I say yes because of the truth, right? Susie or Mark that may have just graduated, got an MBA from Harvard, very high intellect, educated, but they've got 1.7 years of experience in the trenches of retail. And they design a program and a scope of work A to Z. And then they put a number at the bottom, right? They don't know anything about where that number is. It's a mathematical equation for them. Like your number's wrong. Your scope of work is right. But let me tell you the truth. Your number needs to be 2x, right? And then Susie gets mad at me and she goes, like, your competitor said, yeah, Nick, like, great, use the competitor. I don't want to lose money, right? We're in the business for profit type of scenario. And I look at that telling the truth. And it's funny, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years down the road, I run into Susie and she's like, hey, you remember that project? I'm like, oh, I remember it, type of thing. Yeah, you were kind of right, type of thing. And yeah, so the truth always shines through, and I always like to tell the truth, even if I'm the bad guy sitting at the table, right?
right. Right.
Mhm.
My brother used to say, and I've kind of
Bless
caught
you.
on to the quote, truth and time walk hand in hand. It's just such a
Totally.
simple quip, but it's like, yeah, I understand that you believe that's true today. Let's talk again in 5 years. We'll see. I don't have to be right. We'll see.
I hate that line. I don't have to be right. Because that's when you know they're like, I'm going to be right, you stupid person. But it's like,
Well, and
Yeah.
so often that comes down from experience, right? So
yeah.
I say in my industry, I have an advantage because I started out in the field in the trenches, right? I started out before cell phones. I spoke at a conference and the kids were like, "You started before cell phones? What? Were wheels square like the Flintstones?" So think of this. We're in
You listen to
retail
that on the
construction.
radio, right?
And think of this. Started in retail construction. We would have to put things and install things on a wall. This was before DeWalt drills. So we had a screwdriver, right? Type of thing.
Man,
So that
you
comes from experience and knowing what it takes to build a store and install it. And 90% of the time, I want to say my competitors, which on one hand, I'd say we don't really have competitors, they've got zero experience of in the trench in the field. They don't know what it takes to
Mhm.
install that sign or that fixture or that
right,
millwork, right?
right.
Mhm.
Well,
And yeah, I pulled my hair out from experience, Dave. You could really.
I sure can. I sure can. And not to be an old guys group, but man, when contractors used to pre DeWalt, as we would say, they all used to be Popeye. I feel like we're in a cartoon trend here, but Popeye's big forearms. Every tradesperson was like that because everything was done manually, and you crank
Exactly.
things. So
Exactly.
sorry, Hannah, that's a really bad segue. I'm going to throw it back to you. You asked a
That's
great
okay.
question.
I mean, I don't really have a great segue from here, but I'll just continue the conversation forward. So, Bob the Builder, because apparently that's what we're doing now. Tell me about
Totally.
tell me about the F piece of it, the finish the job. I mean, you can't be done without finishing the job. Like when I think about what you do, F is the whole thing because you're never doing anything if you're not finishing it. And so tell me about a time where that was just like specifically impossible in front of you and you were like, it's never going to happen. Like, I don't know. And it did, or something like that. What does finishing the job mean to you?
You know what? I love this question because it comes down to perception and that closure because it's kind of like a contract, right? We're going to do this. You're going to pay me. We're going to do X. You're going to pay me Y, right? Type of scenario. And we could walk away and like, okay, thank you, and kind of leave. It's okay, but it's not great. What we like to do, and especially with Flexecution, is we've got a whole process, and closure is the last letter is a T, and it's a thank you, right? And literally sweeping the floor, taking a photograph, taking a video of I don't want to say the perfect scenario, but the best scenario that we can deliver with what we have, right? Maybe they didn't deliver
Mm-hmm.
all the materials, maybe this, but making it look as best we can with the conditions of the job site in the store at that point in time. So
Mm-hmm.
finishing and literally shaking that store manager's hand. Susie Smith, Mike Jones, thank you so much for all your collaboration. This, get a photo with them, smiling, whatever it is that resonates so well because they'd chirp, they'd speak to corporate, that company was horrible, or wow, Flexecution is the industry leader in installations. We need to use them for every job we do. That goes a long way than just walking out and not even saying goodbye. So
Sure.
I love that closure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's such an important part. I try to tell people all the time that you're not finished finishing until you've told the person who asked you to finish that you finished what they asked you to finish. That it's you need that closed loop of communication, and they've responded, "Thank you." Right? Like it's just like until they know and you know that they know that you're done, you're not done.
You're spot on. And I like to say and communicate to our groups, communication is the key to our success and or failure if we don't. Right? And they're like, "What's that mean?" We have to if you over communicate, just like you just said, we notify the client, "Hey, we finished store 127 last night. Here's all your photographs. Here's the report. Here's the questionnaire. Here's the survey. Here's the store manager. Gave us a 10 out of 10." Whatever it may be. That way they know coming in, wow, last night we completed 18 store locations. That's pretty cool. They
Right?
know that their day starting off on a good note. Or we completed 17, we had an issue in one, we were missing two cases, we need to ship these in. It's that communication so they know versus they get a phone call from a store manager that's not pleased, type of scenario.
Right. Yeah, I've stopped saying this in morning meetings with my team, but I used to say a lot that we eat blank for breakfast. It's when you get into the office in the morning and something went wrong overnight, get on top of that and own it right away, taking ownership of one of the things that I have really sought to be good at in life is not perfection because, as Hannah would tell you,
Perfection paralyzes the process of progress, which might not be up your alley because I imagine the brands that you're working with are looking for pretty close to perfect. But for us,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
That if perfection gets in the way, it's really how do you recover from mismet expectations and how do you reset and fulfill the ultimate desire of the client so that they're fully satisfied and happy to move forward. And so
Absolutely.
and communication is key to that. Absolutely key to that. So
Spot on. Spot on.
tell us a little bit more about your own YouTube channel and the Retail Nomad and kind of like what are your episodes like and what are you talking to people about and who's the market for it?
Great question again. And if you think about it, retail is one of the top 5 sectors of business in the world, right? And a lot of people don't look at it, they don't realize, right? A logistics provider, a manufacturer that makes widgets, whatever the widgets are, right? Could be bottles, could be jeans, could be anything. A lighting company, a flooring company. I consider that retail because they supply things that are either required to build a retail store or that make things that are sold in a retail store. And I say all of that because I love to show it all, right?
Nice.
And showing retail around the world, Nike in Columbus, Ohio is pretty similar to a Nike in Tokyo, maybe with the exception of the verbiage on the signage, right?
Sure.
Maybe some difference of the product selection based off demographics, right? High end wealth, lower income. They might change it, modify it a little bit, across the board, it's pretty similar, right? I love to show that yin and yang, right? One week, a corporate brand structure, Versace, Michael Kors, Nike, Skechers. The next week, I love to showcase a ma and pa that you've never seen or heard of, chances are, unless you've stood on a mountaintop in Morocco. And I sat with a whole team of grandmothers, didn't speak a word of English. I don't speak Arabic, with the exception of Shukran. And I learned how to smash argon seeds from the tree. And I had no idea what argon oil was. And I get off the plane in Morocco and they're like, would you like some argon oil? I'm like, what is that? They're like, well, it helps your hair and skin. Well, I'm like, I'm out of 50% of those. Right. So I, I had no idea that argon oil was sold in Sephora's, Ulta's. A lot of women are familiar with argon oil. Most
oh
men,
yeah,
I had no idea what it was.
Right.
And I
Right.
ended up on that mountaintop showcasing these grandmothers that take the seed from a tree, they roast it and they like you turn it into an oil, they bottle it, they cap it, and it gets moved down to the supply chain and ends up on a store shelf. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's a story right there. So
Right.
hmm.
those type of elements, right? It's everything that encompasses retail.
Wow, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. Where can people find you?
Great question there because LinkedIn has been my number one driver for the last 20 years, and that's under my personal name, Nick
Okay.
Harbaugh, right? On YouTube, that's under The Retail Nomad. So 3 words, The Retail Nomad. And we just last week started an Instagram channel, which I'm still learning, and I do get the value of it by the branding side of things, and that's under the Retail Nomad as well.
Great.
Amazing. If there's one episode that everyone should go watch, what's your favorite one that they should start with?
Oh my goodness, Candy, you're killing me. We got to drill down more specifically. Are you looking for authenticity local or corporate, or give me a continent?
Most entertaining. No continent, just context. Most
Most
entertaining video.
entertaining. Wow. I love the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, Turkey, right? And
Mm,
and I pull this one out It's the largest bazaar in the world, and they
Cool.
say it's where retail originated, right? So think back,
Oh.
I think 500 years ago, it was an open market. It was the first location in the world that they put four walls around for two reasons: to tax the vendors and the sale of the goods, and then number
Yeah.
two, to police price gouging. So if you and I had the same product, you couldn't be at 10x and I'm at X. So it kept an even playing field. That definition is where retail, a building with four walls, you know, created the retail sector that we know today. 500 years later, still not that different, right? It looks
Right.
Interesting.
fancier, looks prettier, and they got some high tech gadgets in there these days. But overall, the concept overall hasn't changed much. So I like to revert back to that one with the Grand Bazaar Istanbul, Turkey.
That's great.
Nice.
I've
I
been to
like
the
that.
Grand Bazaar and I bought an Apple Watch there that's, maybe a little suspect. It worked for a while, but it really is an interesting place to be and an incredible place to visit if you love people and you love watching people. Hannah, I know that
I
you're a big
love
people
people
watcher.
watching. I
You
love
would
it so much.
love
No,
going to Istanbul and just sitting in a cafe looking at what's going on around you. It is crazy different.
That sounds glorious. Give me a coffee and I'm sat. I'm ready for it. But okay, Nick, before we wrap up, I have a couple fire questions for you, fire rapid
sure, let's
favorite
go.
questions. What, and you can plead the fifth on any of them if you don't want to answer, but I'm just curious, what's your favorite brand that you've ever worked with?
Favorite brands that I've ever worked with. Can I go with Mattress Firm just to shake it
Sure.
up a bit?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely you
let's
can.
rock and roll with him.
Mattress
Great
from
team, good
Wow.
people. Yeah.
Love it. What's your favorite project you've ever finished? Like coolest storefront?
We did an amazing project years back for Aramark out in Williamsburg, Virginia. Very historic. So limitations of what we
Oh,
can and cannot do. Floor elevation, second floor. It was very complex. When we finished and you stand back and like that wow factor hits you, that looks cool. That's fun. That's exciting. That blends with all the historic elements nearby and not connected to the US military as well.
Wow.
nice.
That's
Love
really
it.
cool.
That would be so unique and just like a really cool project. What is your favorite part of the process, finish to close? Are you like, I love the Bob the Builder part when I get to build? Are you like, I love the Wreck It Ralph part when I get to break stuff down? Are you like, what other cartoons can I come up with? Are you like, I like the Boss Baby when you get to make the deals? What's your favorite? What's your favorite part?
You know what? I mean, I've sold out years ago, right? I sold my entity over 20 years ago. So now I enjoy finding the best fits, right? And you could call it fishing, you could call it sales, you could call it whatever, but finding the elements where the scope of work meshes perfect with our service offerings, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I said earlier, we have to say no the majority of the time because it's not a good fit, right? We're not here to sell you. We're here to build a relationship 5, 10, 20 years down the road. So for
Right.
me, and it's kind of like being a LinkedIn sniper, right? If you will.
Mm,
I like finding the great fits.
yeah.
That's really cool. Okay,
And
wait,
that's
wait, wait, wait,
always
wait, wait.
go ahead.
I have more. Sorry, you can
Go
go. I
ahead.
have more.
No,
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Hannah's
Go.
boss. Go ahead, Hannah.
What's sorry. What's your favorite place to work? You're a nomad. You're everywhere. What's the best location you've worked?
Well, I mean, I've got to lean to the U.S. just because it's where the bulk of the business is, in my history. However, we've completed work in I think over 15 countries. There's complexities
Wow.
there, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
so we helped take some of the home improvement chains north of the U.S. border. I built the Lowe's in Mexico. Yeah, I love those. That's a challenge, but the bulk of our business is domestic U.S. by far, just because of the numeric values, right? But
Sure.
I do like sometimes where they need, hey, we need to go to Colombia. We need to go to, whatever the Puerto Rico. We've done a ton of work in. It's difficult, but I kind of like those calls. Like, all right, yeah, we can figure this out. But the bulk of the US is 97% of our business.
I
Okay,
like
I
it.
got 2 questions, and I'm gonna stomp on Hannah this time.
Let's
Do it.
go.
One, as the nomad part of you, what's your favorite city in the world to be at for a weekend?
Oh,
We
so not work
I'm gonna.
related, just fun.
Can I go with a region?
Sure.
Sure. Costa del Sol, Spain.
Okay, tell
Oh,
In
us about
between, in
that for just
between
30 seconds.
perfect weather, climate, food, beauty, coastal line. In between Valencia and my mind's totally blank right now. I was just there. That mid range, but never really
Okay,
extremely hot, never extremely very cold. So I'm
okay,
very much climate driven.
okay, great. I love
okay.
that. I love that.
Me too.
And then one of the things that you talked about was your constant desire to learn. What's something you've learned in the last 30 days that the whole world needs to know?
Ooh,
Wow.
that's such a question.
Yeah. Well, again, specifically for the last 30 days, I've been in California. So I'm trying to
Right?
think what I learned out there. I learned that I love the climate in California. The climate in San Diego is the perfect climate in the world, period.
It
Excellent
is.
weather.
Everybody knows that already.
Yeah, that's
Well,
fair. That's fair. I think that's fair
well,
on both sides.
but I had to come back to it to realize, wow, I love this.
Right?
I miss this because I lived there for 10 years and then I left it. And I come back like,
Right?
this is amazing.
Right?
Sure. Home sweet
And
home.
what a great eye opener that is for a guy who's traveled the whole world and had so many experiences to come back to the U.S. and go to a specific area that you've lived in before and go,
This is
wow, if
it.
I had to push all of my chips to one spot on the planet, San Diego's where you'd go.
And I'm driven by climate. I'm a baby when it gets cold and I complain when it's too hot. So, I mean, it's that 72 and sunny 330 days a year. I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
Right? Good for
I'm
you.
so
Good for you.
excited. I'm so excited. I just got invited to California for a speaking thing, and I've never been before. I've like been in the airport and in and out, and I'm so excited to go for the first
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Nice.
It'll be
Nice.
a
You're
lot
going to
of
love it.
fun.
You're
Yeah.
going
Very
to love it.
fun.
Yeah. California is special, for sure. So
Totally.
that'll be a great trip for you, Hannah. Nick, thanks so much for sharing that with us. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
it was great to meet
Now,
you.
I was going to say very much. I appreciate your all's time here today. Anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and holler, catch me on social. And
Yeah.
I look forward to conversing with you all next time.
Great.
All
The
right.
Retail Nomad. Find him on Instagram first because you'll be one of his
Yep.
first followers and he'll be connecting with you. Thanks a lot.
Cool. Thanks much.
Have a good one,
Have a
everybody.
great day.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.